agenda.
Agenda.
If you do, have you had a chance to look it over? If there's anything you want to add to the agenda? You had something, Helen, did you want to talk about?
Yeah, the Dana, the sewing day at the senior center.
Events and community engagement, Open 5D is activities report. So we'll put that under activities report, Helen.
Okay.
Anything else that you want to add?
Make sure people turn on their microphones.
Oh, yes, thank you. If you want your microphone to be on,
You're breaking.
you have to push it towards I. Yes.
Oh, it's on.
And if you want to be heard, you have to put it towards your face. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, so,
No, you gotta push it up to I.
I know, and it's, yeah, it's doing all that loudness.
There you go. Yeah, it is a little different, isn't it? Being out there instead of up here.
all right, so I'll call for the approval of the agenda with the addition of Helen's report
second
under
it.
activities.
I
Second.
second, yeah.
All those is there any more discussion? All those,
New business or old business?
excuse me?
New business or old business?
New.
It's just a
She
review
what?
and approval of agenda.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So we're working on the agenda. Deb did the minutes. We have them here in front of us. If you want to take a minute and review them. I thought she did a really nice job. Greatly appreciate it. Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
One correction that I see,
I can't hear you, Ben, I'm sorry.
one correction that I see, and that's that the craft show is gonna be at the community center, not at the senior center.
That is correct. Good eye. December 2nd at the Bath Community Center, sponsored by Friends of Park Lake. We couldn't get the senior center to sponsor it. Any other corrections? Move the adoption of the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved with the one correction. Thank you. Treasurer's report, are we going to do that yet, Dennis?
Not
or
yet,
You haven't got the accounting straight yet?
not yet.
Karen will be out until the 1st of November, so we might not see that until November,
Okay.
our November meeting.
She'll
Public,
be out until when, I'm sorry?
November 1st.
she will be back November 1st.
Okay.
Public comment? So nice to see you, Marie. Thank you for coming. Old business, PR and outreach. I'm looking here at my phone because I sent Taylor a message last week and asked her if we could have the numbers for the senior center for the count. They're done every month. They're usually in well, they have been in the Friday report, the last Friday of the, first Friday of the month for the month before. But Taylor told me when I asked her for the numbers, she doesn't know when they'll be available. Let me see what she says here.
Is that for the meals? Judy, is that for the meals?
Meals participation, And, no, that's not it. We will work to have the numbers for September to you in the next couple of weeks. we will not be able to have the information available for your meeting. I did ask her, so we don't have the numbers. I know personally, from my own personal experience, the numbers have been up. I took a 10-day vacation and was in the senior center the last Wednesday of September, and we didn't have enough chairs. We had one additional card table that we could put up, but there were no chairs. We had not enough chairs.
Short of chairs.
A lot of our participation is menu-driven. Like Friday, we will have meatloaf, and I can guarantee you we won't have enough chairs on Friday. When there aren't enough chairs, what happened that Wednesday before I went on vacation was, people just took their meals away. There wasn't a place to sit in the center, so people took their meals away. But it is important, I think, for us to see the trends, to see what's happening, to know how many meals we're serving in-house, how many meals are being taken away. And I also would and have asked for a report on activities. For instance, the guy, Bob, who teaches ukulele is in there today. I know when I left at 5 minutes to 1, the senior center, there were 4 people in there who were gonna do ukulele. He doesn't start till 1:30, so I'm sure others are coming, because I heard some other people talking about going home and coming back for ukulele. So I would like to see numbers. We're doing yoga on Wednesdays in there, so I would like to see numbers as well, not just meals. Obviously, our lunch program is our biggest program, but we are open on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. I think it's important for us to see numbers for activities and events as well as for food program.
Judy, I have a question. Who would we approach, or who would purchase perhaps 8 more chairs or 10 more chairs for the senior center?
Well, I was gonna ask about that. Do we literally not have them, or were they not out?
Literally, we were out of chairs.
There were,
So
And I do believe that we have 89 chairs, which is our capacity.
Oh, okay.
And so even if I would have said, well, could we use Linda's chair from the office? We have enough chairs for our capacity.
Okay,
So we passed capacity.
okay.
So the only choice is then, hopefully we have enough food and that people who come to eat can take their meal away.
Okay.
But it is a difficult issue. I mean, this is what we've been speaking to the township board about. We don't have enough space in the senior center for all the people who want to come and eat.
Is there somewhere on the agenda that we're going to discuss the status of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
okay. I also think it's important that we literally do a chair count. I know that may seem a bit anal, but since other things have been moved to other areas, I think it's important to know literally what we do have and confirm it's still there.
Ben, do you want to do a chair count?
Pardon?
Do you want to do a chair count?
I can,
Would you mind?
That would be awesome.
And then let us know how many chairs are in there.
I'll do that.
That would be great, because if we need chairs, we can get chairs.
Okay.
Either we'll buy them with some of our money, or we'll get the township to buy them. I would assume the township would buy them, but yes. So let's do a chair count
And we do have patio chairs that we can kind of fall back on.
outside. Yeah. All right, so again, we're talking about PR and outreach and activities as well. So I was disappointed when the October menu was printed and distributed that the euchre game that we have on Thursdays was not listed as an activity. The activity listing on the back of the menu omitted euchre. So I don't know how that gets published, but I imagine Taylor and Jenna work on that together. So I would encourage them to include all of the activities which are happening at the center, which really leads me to ask the question of, if we put an activity together like Nancy's doing euchre, and I understand from talking to the staff in the kitchen today that there's a regular Tuesday euchre game in the afternoon now, how do those become sanctioned? How do they get on the activities list?
How can we know they'll be promoted?
Right, I mean, that is our way of promotion, our PR, because not only is it distributed at the senior center, but it does appear on the senior center website and on the Facebook page. So I think it's important to get that communication going, or so that if we, as a group, support activities that are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that they appear on the activities schedule that is distributed to the community.
But may I just say, where do they distribute the everyday activity list or something? I've seen activity summaries for what they do totally, but where do you find the daily activity list?
It's on the back of the menu.
But if you look at the menu online, you don't see the activity list.
Oh, yeah,
It's
you
on
do.
there.
It's on there.
I've seen activity summaries. When I've saved it, never mind, I'll go check and see, because I've never seen it.
You, Helen, had spoken last time we met about the importance of a calendar, so I brought a couple of examples. So here's a calendar from Grange Acres. This is a calendar that appears in the Crawford County Senior Gazette. They have a senior center that serves the whole county there, and they do a regular monthly newsletter, but they have a calendar of activities as well as their menu. And I think it's important for us to think about the value of a calendar for our seniors, something they could put on their refrigerator, fold up and put in their purse, have by their bedside table, so they know what is coming up. And I'll be happy to pass this newsletter around. I think a newsletter is a really good idea on a number of, for a number of reasons. One of which would include which would be the calendar of events. But also, I think it's a great way to inform people about our center and people who are working in our center and activities at the center. So I'll pass both of these around so you can take a look at them. I promised Mary that I'd share this meal calendar with you because she is always looking for ideas for meals. This senior center does lunch and dinner.
Can we, I thought I read in here somewhere about a proposal to post a calendar on the wall at the senior center.
We had made that suggestion, but it hasn't been taken up.
Well, what if we purchased the calendar and gave it to them? Can we do that?
I believe that those thoughts had been expressed in the
And-
last meeting, yeah.
But where
That
they
we,
fill it
like, what
out?
could we do? I mean, are we concerned they'll tear
I
it
can
down
go-
if we don't make
I can go to
it
Office
sure?
Max and get a wall calendar.
And that's what other people have said too, like to get a big whiteboard type of calendar where you can, you know, it's got the squares and you can change the dates and put the activities, put trips, all kinds of fun stuff on it. And we think it needs to be big so it could be read, but
But we
thought
have
we'd
to
get
know that they
pushback.
will put it up for us.
Yeah, there are several ways to do that. Both of those are great ideas. As well as a whiteboard for suggestions. I mean, I was just sitting with two people after lunch today who are there almost every Tuesday and Thursday. Ben, you've been in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was asking them for suggestions, and they have some good suggestions. Movies, popcorn in a movie. We now have a new popcorn maker. I don't know where the old one went. They obviously couldn't find it, so they bought a new one for us. We were promised a newspaper every morning, 2 copies of the State Journal. It's been since September 1st. We don't have a newspaper over there yet. We were promised coffee and donuts in the morning. Not happening. So I don't know how to move things forward. I'm kind of frustrated myself about it. But I think it is important that we push to get a calendar of some kind available at the senior center and for people who are interested in what we're doing and would look at it online. Jean?
And something might be added throughout the month. So I think if we were to have the current month and next month, we need 2 months posted, the current month and next month. And there might be something added throughout the month, so I don't know about a printed. You know, maybe the calendar that's on the back of the menu is good enough.
Could be more current, though.
Could be, but if you add throughout the month, then people would just have to add it on their calendar, I guess.
Yeah, that serves the people who come in.
Yeah.
But if I'm at home wondering what's going on, it doesn't help me much. But I think we should try to figure out the best way to get a current calendar of activities and events. I don't know, I know that Dana has planned a trip to Bronner's in November with a stop at Tony's on the way. And I know that she's made reservations for a Christmas show at the Riverwalk Theater in December that she would take people to. I don't know, since staff doesn't come to our meetings, I invited Karen, I invited Taylor to come today because Karen's not available. They do not allow Jenna to come to our meetings. I don't know how these things get communicated effectively if they won't participate with us. So I don't know I don't know the best way to answer, to resolve these issues. I mean, we can take the initiative to get a calendar and to ask if we can put it up, but I don't know if they're willing to update it or keep it current. I don't know. What would Jean, from your being in there,
I guess
what would your reading be?
I would, I would almost purchase the calendar and ask them and the committee keep it updated.
For us to keep it updated?
For us to keep it updated, so we're not asking them to do anything additional. You know, we're just going to try and keep it updated.
Like today at lunch, she said something about a craft show. She said a craft day, a craft event. She said the information's on the bulletin board. How many would be interested? Well, I didn't know there was any information on the bulletin board about a craft day or a craft event. I might be interested, but I don't know anything about it. And so she asked for a show of hands. That's all she said. Well, we're having a craft event next Monday. The information's on the bulletin board. Well, why, she doesn't tell us anything. Why can't she tell us what it's about? But
She
there
did
were.
the other day. She showed us the craft.
She what?
She showed us the craft.
Today?
No. What's
other
today,
day.
Wednesday? Monday.
So, but I wasn't there Monday. For people who just coming in, there's no information. I can't raise my hand if I don't know anything about it, and I'm not allowed to speak to her, so I can't ask her anything. So, I don't know how it's supposed to work. It's just not good communication, in my opinion. Dennis?
Does anyone remember, before the pandemic, we did have a calendar on the wall? Does anyone else remember that? Because it wasn't one of the big ones, it was just a small one. But that calendar, anybody could go up and write if there was an activity they knew of on that calendar. I don't know if it only pertained to us or if they knew of one in the community that people might be interested in, they could write it on the calendar. And then people could walk up there and look at the calendar and see, well, what's happening next Tuesday?
It was right on the wall by the kitchen, wasn't it, Dennis, if I remember?
It was, by the cooler,
Yeah, by the water cooler.
actually between the two bathrooms, I
Yeah,
think.
I
But
would
anyway.
ask you, Jean, to purchase a calendar. Of course, it's the end of the year, so it's going to be really hard to find a 2023 calendar maybe, or maybe they'd be half off by now. I think to look at the options, I think that Deb's mentioning a calendar that you can use
Dry
dry erase marker on. That way, we could make the calendar for the month of November, put the dates on it, and in the boxes, we could put down what we know about that's happening in November, and then just rub it off and put December up there.
I think a paper calendar is better.
Yeah.
I'm a paper person.
Right,
So, that way we can keep it for a record. This is what happened in October.
right.
We can still take a picture of it and save that.
Let's try for the end of the year, do it with
I'm
paper.
gonna
Get
try.
as
and
big as-
go
big
to
as
Office
squares as
Max
we
and
could
see what I
see.
can get.
My
I
only
appreciate
worry
it.
about paper is just with the history of what keeps being said, that they're not gonna respect paper and they're gonna throw it away. So, I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm just saying, I'm just gonna, my heart's gonna be broken if they keep disrespecting us and they don't respect what you're doing. I had to ask, okay, you talked about how you're not allowed to talk to Taylor, right?
Jenna,
Oh, to
she's the
Jenna.
program coordinator.
Okay, I'm sorry. To Jenna. I guess I have to ask, what would that even look like? If you asked a question, and as a human being in the senior center, and you asked a question and said,
What's the craft?
Yeah, what's the craft? I'm sorry, I wasn't here before. Can you tell me the craft? I mean,
You can ask that, can't you, Judy?
what?
Well, Karen feels that every time I speak to Jenna, I am disrespectful, and Jenna doesn't like it.
But why is Karen the boss of you? I don't understand that.
I do speak to Jenna.
happened-
Every time when I go in the senior center, I speak to her very kindly.
Yeah.
How was your weekend? How are you doing today, Jenna? Nice to see you today, Jenna. I like that smile you're wearing today, Jenna. I speak to her every day when I go in there. I don't go in there
So
every
you
day,
could
but
have asked a question, what is the craft?
I honestly, when people say things like you're not allowed to do something and it's an unreasonable instruction, I think that it needs to go to fruition. You need to, again, respectfully document, you need to say what you need to say, and if it goes south, then we address that. Because she doesn't have the right to dictate to whom you speak.
Right, I
That's just
agree.
that's just not okay.
Karen doesn't want me
Worse.
speaking to Jenna about programs and activities, and so I don't.
Right, but what Deb is saying is Karen has no right to tell you that.
I realize that.
Yeah, I think it just needs to be, the conversations still need to happen, and if there's, I hate to be, this sounds disrespectful, I'm not gonna say that way. If there is, a concern to where Jenna goes to Karen and complains, and anything comes of it, then we address that, and then that gets addressed to the Board of Trustees. Say, this is not okay, I've been told that, it was an unreasonable expectation, it's not something I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be aware of my tone, but I am gonna ask questions, because I am serving this community, and it's not reasonable or appropriate to be told this, and it's not reasonable, appropriate to then later criticize me for doing so, and that needs to be addressed. Why? do
It's
we have someone-
disrespectful, plain and simple. It's
Oh,
disrespectful.
yeah, well, it's.
On her part.
It's a controlling power play.
Right.
That's what it is. So you don't give into that. I really think that the fact that she said that needs to just, whoop, it's gone. Seriously, it's just gone. And you simply interact and you behave as you would behave. And there's no, you're an intelligent person. I've been very impressed with your, ability to discern. So you realize that this person is emotional, overly emotional. Okay, you can work with that, right? We all can work with that, but we're still going to work with it. Well, then we're still gonna work with it. We're still gonna say, okay, you're not gonna say, what, are you crying? No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that, but we are gonna say, it's important I talk to you.
But at the same time, there's situations that are created that are real similar to pushing rope uphill, and you're not gonna get anywhere with it. It's really unfortunate.
But
and
if we
sad.
don't do anything, then we can't then later go to those who are greater authority and say, this is what's happened. You know, we have to be able to, yeah, go ahead. I think you get
Well-
what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, well, actually, I guess my question is why Karen and Taylor won't come to the meetings. Are they afraid of us? There's got to be a reason why they won't come to our meetings.
Karen's responsible for the senior center, and so she's responsible to be here. She's
Right.
attended one of our meetings this year. And for one time provided us with a report when she wasn't able to be here. I can't answer that question either, Dennis. I don't know. It seems to me like they're just trying to push us off and separate us completely. And I think it's disheartening, it's disrespectful. It's shows a lack of responsibility, a lack of leadership. It,
So then do we go to the Board of Trustees and bring
we
up the
need to.
fact that Karen's not coming to our meetings?
That we've asked her, and many times she
They
doesn't
don't
even
care.
respond, right?
They don't care. I mean, just wait till you hear the discussion on our application. I mean, we've been working a year to get resources for the addition to the senior center. We'll get to that later in the meeting. It is an issue. Karen has asked me not to speak to Jenna about programs and activities, and so I don't, just out of respect. I know that Jenna gets easily offended by me. I don't intend to offend her, but whatever I say to her, unless it's a pleasantry, she's offended by. There's nothing I can do except I try to not rock the boat. I think we have a phenomenal senior center. Our meal program is incredible. We have the best meal program in the county for our seniors. We are growing by leaps and bounds. I feel, it's in the senior center's best interest not to rock the boat, but just to try to continue to move forward. We're going to talk about Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm perplexed by that. They have paid staff people in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays to cover the whole time. But when I've been in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, those staff people have been sitting in the office with the door closed. There hasn't been an effort I have not been in there often. And Ben, you could correct me, but there hasn't been no effort, as I've seen, to even put up a movie and popcorn. You know, that's pretty simple. To organize a game, to write a poem, I mean, or do a craft. So,
I will say, Judy, that I was the last one to leave Monday from the senior center because I was waiting for the blue bus. And Jenna came out, sat at the table, talked to me, helped carry my stuff out to the bus, and was really very friendly.
yeah, I mean, she's very kind to the patrons. I'm not saying she's not kind. She's very kind to the patrons. I think that she lacks leadership. I think that she lacks training. And I think that she lacks initiative. I think that she's at a loss. She doesn't know what to do. I mean, she's got the ukulele guy in there now, and people liked it when he came last time. He's a really nice man. But I went and I asked her about if she'd ever reached out to the library about doing some programming at the senior center, and she said no. Because I didn't want to go to the library about programming at senior center if she had gone to the library already and had something in the works. But she said no, so I've been to the library now to talk about programming on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But it's a very difficult situation that I feel, at least for me. I mean, and maybe it's intentional. I mean, maybe that's what they want, it to be difficult for me. I don't know. They don't speak to me about it.
Well, it feels like you're not the boss of me type of move for them to say you can't talk to us. It's like, you're not going to tell us what to do. Well, who said we're telling you what to do anyway? We're just asking questions so that we can have our own conversations and, you know, proceed. I mean, I know you don't want to rock the boat, but I feel like we're standing on the dock. We're not even in the boat. The boat's not even going anywhere because we can't, we're like paralyzed by this. It's just an inappropriate dynamic. I do respect, Judy, that you don't want to be perceived as being disrespectful. I really do. I think that's a testament to you. But, you know, we're given this task to get things done, and it's like they're tying our hands behind our backs, and I just at a loss.
Perhaps you'd like to meet with Karen.
You bet I would. Yeah, I would very much like to meet with Karen. Yeah. Shall I want to get more details from you, like, as far as when you send emails, like her not responding, I want some specifics. And do you think she'll never meet with me?
No, no emails. Make an appointment.
What'd you say, Marie?
No emails.
Oh, no, but I want to address the fact that emails are sent, requests are made, and they're not followed through on.
Oh, yes.
I want to have that conversation and find out how can we do that better?
I mean, it's not just from me. Dana's emailed Karen a lot, you know, about activities, events, outings, things like that. She
Well,
never.
that's what I mean.
Right.
I want that kind of information, so
Right.
maybe that's something that I
Well,
can.
we have until November 1st when she comes back that we could talk about that and
That sounds
try to
great.
schedule a meeting after she comes back to talk further about it.
I think that'd
Yep.
be great. Thank
That'd
you.
be great, thank you. Okay, opened at 5 days. What are your observations been on being open Tuesdays and Thursdays? Have you been there quite frequently on Tuesdays or Thursdays?
Yeah, I generally go to put puzzles together, but I've also got roped into playing cards one day also.
Oh, good.
But every Tuesday and Thursday, there seems to be somebody in there playing cards, whether it's early in the morning or later in the afternoon.
Yeah, Nancy does euchre in the afternoons on Thursday, and I heard today that someone is doing euchre in the afternoons on Tuesday.
They are.
They were done by the time I got there yesterday, but they also had popcorn yesterday.
Yeah, Lizzie used the popcorn machine for the first time just to see how it worked.
Yes.
She was trying to get a feel for it.
I was told that they were playing dominoes in the morning yesterday.
Yep, there is someone who does go in there and play dominoes. I know that they're also having people sign in, so we know how many people are coming on Tuesdays and how many people are coming on Thursdays. Again, I've asked Taylor for that in a report, but I've gotten nothing from her. Helen, you had something you wanted to talk about that you were gonna work on with Dana.
Is Dana okay? Does anybody know?
She's gone to a dog show.
Oh, okay. All right. We talked at the last meeting about having like a sewing day, the second Tuesday at the senior center. But in talking to people, I kind of reformatted it and called it a fiber day because some people knit, crochet. Those are easier crafts to drag around too. Sewing is a heavy craft to drag around. But start at 10 o'clock, end at 4, bring a lunch. Would refrigerators be available for people to put food in?
We do have a small refrigerator in the back,
Okay,
in the senior center, not in the kitchen. We have a small refrigerator in the senior center.
okay. Well, and I've seen carts, stuff here. You can load your stuff from the car on a cart, take it in, because sewing machines get heavy for some people.
Most people.
Yeah. So anyway, we talked about having an event like this. And so I just put my thoughts on paper and sent it to Dana thinking we'd chat and kind of formalize some of this. But if you guys got opinions, comments, or whatever, I think it'd be kind of fun.
Would this be, you said the second Tuesday of the month,
Correct,
not every Tuesday, but the second Tuesday.
correct,
So in October, it would have been the 10th. In
yes.
November, it would be election day, no? Yeah, I think it sounds like a good idea.
But long-term, what I would also even suggest is, maybe at the fiber event, if people attended it, there could be like a bag lunch that the senior center would sell to them, or some kind of help from the senior center kitchen people. Just a thought, or maybe leftovers from Monday could be served then Tuesday for lunch, whatever. So ultimately, they wouldn't have to bring their lunch with them all the time, they could eat senior center lunch.
Or we could order lunch in.
Okay,
I mean, we've done that before. On Tuesdays, we've ordered lunches.
oh, okay, where do you
Like-
order them from?
We can order sandwiches or pizza from Spags. We've had lunches brought in from China Express.
Really?
We've had soup and sandwiches from Monticello's. We've had Mexican food from Mexico to go.
I never heard of that.
It's a
Okay.
great locally owned Mexican restaurant just on the north side. So there are a lot of options. Speaking of food from the kitchen, I would hope that once people get used to our being open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if they make cookies on Monday and they would make extra cookies so that we could have them on Tuesday. If they make cookies on Wednesday, that they would make extra so we would have cookies on Thursday, but I don't know.
Thoughts?
So what do you need from us to move forward on this? Dana, for one thing, so she can help.
Yeah, I need Dana. But do you guys think this sounds like an idea?
I think it sounds great. Sounds like fun,
I like it.
especially if people can like bring their own thing. One person's knitting, one person's doing cross stitch, one person's,
Yeah.
Crocheting or
Crocheting, yeah.
quilting or,
Could you, instead of calling it fiber event, could you call it a craft event? That way, if people didn't want to do any of that stuff, they could bring something else in, like wood burning or something like that?
And to me, that's one of the problems that we'd get into. If they bring the craft stuff, okay, and this is probably a personal thing, some of those crafts really stink. I can't tolerate that. It makes me
Oh.
sick.
Okay.
So the fiber event, is knitting, crocheting, it's sewing, there's no smells involved. But it kind of narrows the perspective in the beginning, and maybe we would branch out and do something like that, but initially,
start with fiber and see how it works.
yeah.
Okay.
When I started the craft group in Bath, the first 3 meetings, there was 2 people that showed up. So the 4th meeting, I said, here's the deal, if nobody shows up, we're going to lunch, skipping this whole quilt group idea. And there was like 7 people that showed up in addition to us, and it was like, okay, well, forget lunch. And we had the meeting. So sometimes the word of mouth has to get out there too. But I found there's some remarkably talented quilters in this town. I didn't know there was when I first moved here. So, anyway, and maybe some of these ideas might evolve. So the food, you can't start initially with that because, if only 3 people show up, you're not making enough money. But if a ton of people start showing up, then it's a good thing. So, I don't know. So I really don't want to go with craft. I think fiber at least narrows the perspective a little bit.
Okay.
So let's find out when the deadline is for publishing for the calendar, the menu, to get activities on the back of the menu. Find out what the deadline is for that, so that you and Dana can get this written up and it would appear on the printed version of the calendar.
Actually, when we went and talked to that lady at the senior center, what's her name?
Jenna?
Jenna. I presented it as wanting her help to support this whole thing.
And,
She did not disagree. She just
Jenna?
said, get me the information. So I
Okay.
thought, okay. So she appeared to be on board with the whole idea. I was kind of pleasantly surprised.
no, that's a good thing.
So, yeah. But Dana or I will have to be present in the senior center on this day,
Right.
either one of us. So, but,
Helen, when you talk about that, are you talking about quilters bringing their projects?
yeah,
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
so everybody will be working on.
Their own stuff. But what we've done though, even at the Bath Bees, the church has allowed us to come early and sew
Yes.
before. So if somebody's stuck on a project, they bring that project and get the resolution before the meeting starts or at the meeting. They say, look, I'm here on this project. Can you help me? And so it's kind of fun that people have shared and helped each other. And so you keep learning. So I've been quilting 100 years. There's always something new that I learn, because I just don't think it's possible. And it's the same with crocheting or knitting even. I think people can always help each other.
Yeah, I sure
So-
could use help when I'm crocheting, because I taught myself, and there are lots of questions I have
Oh.
along the way. Yeah.
And see, that's something I have this brain block. I've never been able to I was the only person Trudy could not teach to crochet, and she taught over 100 people how to crochet. Oh, well, okay, but I can sew. So anyway, this is
all over the place.
where we are with it, and we're just gonna start simple.
So let's schedule, you get with Dana and let's schedule the second Tuesday in November and get it on the activities calendar
Okay.
with Jenna.
But you said you wanted to find out what the deadline is for getting things on the calendar. Who's gonna do that? I mean,
will.
are you gonna do that in general for everybody?
Yeah.
As well?
Yeah, I'll go over and ask her.
Cool, thank
as
you.
soon as
You
this
could
is
also
done.
ask Mary, what's her deadline for getting her menu in?
Oh,
Because she has to have her menu ready for
okay, yeah,
for
good point.
November.
Yeah,
And I know she was working on it Monday.
okay,
So you could always find out from the kitchen, or find out from Mary, what's your deadline?
okay.
And use that as a deadline for activities.
Right. So, again, we've asked for a greeter at the door and name tags. Elaine Hansen has taken name tags into the center, and given them to Jenna and asked Jenna to have people use them. No one's still using name tags. So perhaps, I'll ask Elaine to reach out to Jenna and see where the name tags are. Elaine,
Couldn't the name tags just be put in a basket by the door with a pen near them? And people can fill out their own name tag.
oh yeah. Another activity that we could have is, we could have the seniors who are there, like Dorothy, she could take the roster and make a name tag for everybody, and we could lay them out. You could just pick up your name tag. There are a lot of ways to do it.
And we could leave cute
Yeah,
little
so-
stickers and people could decorate their own.
Right, we have so many new people at the senior center. I don't know all of their names, and so it would be helpful for all of us if we wore name tags, I believe, and it's not just me. I think a lot of older people have trouble remembering names.
I think a lot of people have trouble remembering names.
Yeah.
Right,
I can probably remember your address, but I'm not good with names. Never have been.
Me either.
so.
Yeah.
It's been a problem.
Are we talking about name tags that have the pin that you could put on and then you return it at the end of the day? Or are you talking about one that sticks on but you throw it away when you get home?
Our preference, what we've talked about, is the plastic kind with a pin on it,
Okay,
that you put your name in there, and you take it off, like at church, you take it off before you leave.
okay.
You might not remember to, and you find it on your dresser the next morning, and you put it on before you go, but yeah,
Okay.
more permanent.
Is that the kind that Elaine brought?
I believe so.
Okay.
See, my preference is for the peel and stick, because how many times have you gone to something with the name tag and you get home and go, oh God, I went through Myers with my name tag on me? I mean,
I
it's just,
wonder why everyone kept calling me by name.
yeah, no kidding. It's like, I don't know that many people in the world. So,
The principle, whether it's permanent or temporary, is to get people to wear name tags so we know who they are.
Yeah.
I know, and that was my big issue when I was away this summer. And telling them, you know each other, I don't know you.
Yeah,
So you're wearing a name tag for me.
Right, you've come back after a month, after the summer in the UP. I'm sure when you walk in there are a lot of people you don't recognize.
I don't know the card players' names.
Oh,
I've got
hand
to
and foot,
relearn the
yeah.
card players' names.
Right.
They added a whole bunch of new players to hand and foot.
Oh, there are a lot of players at hand and foot. It was fun. I went to yoga a few weeks ago on a Wednesday and they were playing hand and foot and it was an hour between yoga and hand and foot. And lunch. So I went and learned how to play hand and foot. They're having so much fun. They were just laughing the whole time I was back there. They loved that. So I do also feel, and I'm not gonna give up on this, that we need a greeter. I think someone should greet you when you walk in the door. So 1, we welcome you. 2, we introduce ourselves to you. 3, you learn where the bathrooms are. 4, you know what the procedures are, how you pay for your lunch, what it costs, how you have to pick up your own silverware and get your own beverage. I firmly believe that as we have before the pandemic, there should be a greeter sitting at a desk right at the front door.
We could always volunteer, the committee could volunteer to do that. Otherwise, it would be a staff person.
It should be a staff person. That's what they're paid for. One of the staff people's title is greeter.
Well, no, that. I'm sorry. That's their title?
No,
Okay.
it's the woman who takes the money.
Okay.
All right, that's enough on that. No. I don't know what else to do. Anyways,
Spot would love that job. She'd be a great Walmart greeter.
who?
My dog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's blind as a bat, but loves to say hello to people.
Okay, I'm gonna talk a minute about the senior center expansion. I will say that the budget recommendation that Karen put forward to the trustees included $105,000 for salaries for the senior center, being open 5 days a week, starting in January. Right now, we're on temporary pilot basis till the end of December. But she has put this in the budget to be open 5 days a week. She has raised amount of annual salary from $88,000 to $105,000 and included a jump in benefits from $7,000 to $12,000. And so that's why
88,000? It was, 88,000 was the total before? Did I hear that right?
I can't hear you.
8,000.
I'm
yes.
sorry.
It was 8,000.
No, I mean.
You said 8,000,
no,
12,000 for benefits.
No, she said 7,000 to 12 for benefits, but I'm talking about the total salary.
105,000 for the staff,
But what was it
From
before?
88,000.
From
Oh,
88, that's the number I'm
from
looking for.
88,000.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
So when I saw this and, the fact that it in the note says that the increase in salaries is due to being open 5 days a week, it prompted me, before the Board of Trustees had heard Karen's recommendations and had a chance to question Karen about her recommendations for the whole budget. This is just, I'm speaking of the senior center. I asked Karen what the plan was. Great to see that you're planning to be open 5 days a week. How is this going to be staffed? How are the hours going to be covered? What are the responsibilities? Who's taking the responsibility, providing the leadership for this being open 5 days a week? She didn't answer me. Then they had the budget session. She didn't answer me during the budget session. The township board has reviewed her recommendation. They haven't voted on it yet, but they've reviewed her recommendation. And so before coming into the meeting today, I asked Taylor, so we would know what to anticipate in the next year, what the plan was, and she said, it's none of my business. Those weren't her exact words. I don't want to misquote her because that's all I need is more than that. I don't need that. Staff coverage and staff expectations are set by the superintendent. That is not within the scope of your work. That was her response. So,
Is she here today?
Taylor,
Yeah,
is she here in the building today?
yeah.
I imagine.
Well, she was gonna give us the senior center expansion update. Is she going to do that?
I'm going to do that. But
Oh.
first I wanted to talk about the budget.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, that's where we are with the budget. There were no objections to this. Marie, could you say would you agree with me, there were no objections to being open 5 days a week? No objection to this increase in salary amount from 88,000 to 105,000? Also,
My understanding, just take it for what it's worth, my understanding is, once she goes through these page by page, we then have an opportunity, alleged opportunity, to be able to express or say what we dislike. When you go through a page like the senior center, for example, and you say what it is, it's not registering until you get time to think about it, look at it, and compare it to whatever you think it should be. So I hope we will have the opportunity. Now, she claimed that she would have this update for us before she comes back.
there will be a public hearing on the budget
Oh, yeah.
before that's adopted by the township board.
But that has nothing to do with what we, as Board of Trustees, assuming that they've looked at it and assuming that there's questions with salaries for staff, what we look at benefits, those things seem to be etched in cement. But I don't think that's the case, at least it shouldn't be. They shouldn't be etched in cement. But the public hearing is different than, that's for you to come to.
Right, we will have an opportunity to respond to this,
Tell us that this really sucks, this shouldn't be,
right?
this is way too much money being spent.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So the same night that they discussed the budget, they discussed funding projects that would be funded by the American Rescue Plan Act money. So in February, we asked the township board if we could have $5,000 to hire an architect to look at the expansion so that we would have the opportunity to apply for money under the CIP program of the township, and we'd have all the data that they needed so that there wouldn't be any questions. We would have the information, how big, where, parking, cost, price, building. The contract with the architect wasn't signed by Karen until 5 days before the CIP application was due. So there was no way that we could get money we could apply for a CIP without the data. So the next opportunity that we had to apply for resources for the expansion was through what they call the American Rescue Plan Act Fund. We received $1.6 or $1.7 million, $1.3 million from the American Rescue Plan Act. And so they said there would be a July 17th deadline to apply for that money. So I turned in our application for the senior center expansion based on the data that we had from the architect and the builder. And then Wednesday, the 11th of October, the township board voted, there were 8 proposals that came before them. And the township board voted on which ones would be considered for ARPA, American Rescue Act Plan funding, and the senior center was not on that list. After we went through all of that for a year to answer their questions, bringing in the facilitator to do the community engagement process, and then bringing in the architect, the engineer, and the builder, providing them with all the information that they requested in order to answer their questions, as well as showing them and ever-increasing demand on the senior center for our meal program. They denied our funding for the addition. They refused to discuss the expansion as a part of that budget process. They refused to discuss it. I will say Marie supported it. She spoke very eloquently about the need and why it was important, and there was no other visible support. Mind you, we were short 2 members, one due to death and the other due to COVID. So we only had 5 board members present during the meeting. They have now appointed a replacement for Joe, Jack Phillips, and Sherry Killerman had COVID. She's not here today because she still is very sick. So, personally, I feel that the township trustees should have a discussion about ARPA funding, which includes the senior center expansion. But because Brenda, our clerk, doesn't feel that the senior center expansion received enough support, she didn't put it on the list. Now, when Marie was discussing the senior center expansion, Ryan said to her, she was speaking, and Ryan said to her, I would support the senior center. And Al Rosecrans, sitting where Jean is, looked at Ryan and said yes, and looked at Marie and said yes. Marie is still talking. And Cheryl wasn't here. So if they had taken a vote, Ryan would have supported it, Al would have supported it, Marie would have supported it, and Sherry would have supported it. We would have had 4 votes. But they didn't vote, and Brenda didn't write down the fact that Ryan and Al had supported this. And so I asked Brenda, because she records the meetings, what she had recorded. And she said, well, she recorded that they supported the police shields, the police COVID pandemic funding, the fire pandemic funding, and the poured in place for Wishwasher Park. And I said, well, what about the senior center? And she said, well, there wasn't enough support for that. They didn't take a vote. And so it was really all just left up to
So her perception.
Brenda's interpretation. And so when I asked Brenda to look at the tape again, to listen to the tape again, to watch the tape again, her response to me was, per your request on what Ryan and Al said about the senior center during the ARPA conversation, I would suggest you contact them directly and set up a time to have a more detailed discussion with them. You can also listen to the meeting on the website. The ARPA conversation starts at 1:17 and ends at 1:39. Hope this is helpful. Enjoy your day. No, not helpful. So, I feel we have all worked really hard on this for a year.
What other options do we have for funding?
Well, I have a call in to Sam Singh, he's our state senator, to see if there are state resources available for senior centers. A grant. The kitchen expansion was done with a grant from the Capital Region Community Foundation. The least I would expect from the township trustees in support of our work is a commitment to provide the matching money necessary to get a grant. The estimate for the building with a basement, which is what we asked for, because we need the storage. We need a shelter. Tornado, bad storm, rain, whatever, we should have a shelter. So we requested that the building be designed with a basement. So with a basement, it's $500,000 for the building. Without a basement, it's about $425,000 without a basement. So if you go for a grant like from the Capital Region Community Foundation, they require a 30% match. Right, so 30% of 500,000,
150.
it's $150,000.
I thought we were applying for a grant.
No, we're asking the township for the money. Because they have a budget, they have more money in the bank than they know what to do with. They have like, now it's, at the beginning of this year, it was almost $7 million. And now Karen has spent about $2 million over the last year. And so now it's now down to about $5 million. And also during the same meeting, Ryan said to the board, looking at Karen, we have to stop spending that money. I don't think we should put any more of our resources into projects going forward. In other words, what he was saying, in a sense, to the senior center expansion is that they wouldn't take it out of the general fund. They do have the money in the general fund to pay for it.
So how do we get them to vote again? How do we bring this up again?
I think we have to participate in the process, which is to go to the podium during a meeting.
And we can do that and we can voice our opinion, but how do we get them to vote again? How do we get it on the agenda and get them to vote again?
Well, they're not done discussing the ARPA funds. They can't be done discussing the ARPA funds because the police request was for $315,000. And the fire department request was for, I don't remember what the fire department request was for, but I sat through that meeting when the police department made their PowerPoint presentation to request the ARPA funds for the police department. What they're asking is for every policeman who worked during the pandemic to be given a check for $25,000. All of my friends and family who worked during the pandemic, they worked during the pandemic. They didn't receive any money except stimulus money for the pain and suffering or whatever the pandemic caused them personally. But this request from the police department for ARPA funds, when I sat and watched the presentation here in the meeting, was $25,000 per officer for a total of $315,000, and they would write them direct checks.
Let me clarify something here.
Come to the microphone so we can hear you. I don't even know if it's on, but speak up, whatever.
It was a range, right? Wasn't it a range they requested?
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. What they requested, you're absolutely correct, would be maximum. I don't know what you do with this stupid thing. And the maximum is the 13%, but that's a range, that's absolutely correct. That doesn't mean that they have to, but of course, majority always rules. So that 13% is definitely out there, but you can go any place with it. You can go down to 10%, 5%, 2%, whatever this board has a determination to do. The list that they gave, for me personally, was probably one of the best lists for your strategic plans that I've ever seen. From the standpoint of where your money should go. I am not one, and it's very obvious I'm not one, that definitely agrees with the hiring that's being done. And it's being done expeditionally. And I have serious issues with that. And of course, my voice isn't heard with that. But going back to what you were saying, that's absolutely correct. They did come, and you're right, it was $25,000 per, there were 12 of them. that they gave us, that they alleged had been there during the COVID. For me, and this is why I had mentioned it before, there are three very, very important issues, people, organizations, for the ARPA fund. And that is your fire department, your police department, and the senior services. Those are the ones that hurt. That's what ARPA is supposed to be for.
Right.
It's not supposed to be for roads, it's not supposed to be for a shield, it's not supposed to be these other issues that are being brought in. That's what strategic plans are for, and you've mentioned it, Judy, many times. You know, that's something
Since
that
February, every month.
every month, and you just keep right on coming, because eventually, God help us, that this is gonna make a difference. The new person that's coming on, and I know that there are those who do support Jack for being here. I did not support that. And my reasoning for not supporting it had everything to do with what the community voted for in 2020. He was incumbent and he lost. Okay? For me, that means you stay out of the picture for, 4 years and then you decide. He'd already put his application in for the police and fire board, and that of course had to do with Al, and I'm sure, you supported it then. That's my only assumption. Did you come forward and say it? No, but you did ask me why you weren't on it. And of course, I'm saying our police and fire doesn't really dissolve itself, these people, until December of this year. And that was in January, February. So no, I'm not going to make commitments for that until that time comes. But I'm just saying, my own personal reasoning for doing it had to do with the fact that what our people in this community want, what they said, was very clear to me. It was very, very clear. An incumbent lost. So that meant, for the next 4 years, you need to kind of stay to the side. If you're gonna do it, then do it at that time in the next election that comes up. And I'm sure he will. I'm sure there's no problem with that. I agree with whatever he wants to do for 24. I do not agree that he should have been with one of there were so many people who were there, who are very talented. You talk about the talented people that you have. We have an enormous talent pool in Bath. It's amazing, the talent that we have in this area. Whether you see it or not, I don't know. I think you do, but it's ignored to a degree. But again, you're going back to what the seniors want. And Judy's absolutely correct. They didn't talk about the range at all. The one thing that bothered me the most was what has already been spent for ARPA. And why that bothered me, there was about 80,000 that was figured, that was spent for the senior center. They're alleging that's already been taken out. I'm not so sure I understand that completely, because some of those issues for taking money out should not have been committed for that. That's committed
Well, for
for
instance,
something else.
just as an example,
Okay.
they did fund the facilitation and the architect for the senior center,
Yes,
but they also voted to pave Ann Drive at $89,000.
well, this
Or
is
more.
this is the part that makes it very schizophrenic.
Right.
With how these things are being figured and what they're being figured out. But that again has to do with how this board and our new incumbent coming in will deal with these issues. And I'm not so sure they'll be dealt with in the way that they should be dealt with. And that's a serious problem. But when it comes to the senior services, your center during the pandemic hurt more than anybody else did. I don't disagree with the fire department and the police department. I happen to agree with that. That's my background. I understand, they have to be out there. And when they come home, they're bringing the infection possibly home. I get that. So I understand the hazard pay that they're looking for, but it is a range. It's a huge range.
I got the sense from his physicality when he was presenting it, that he did not have the expectation of the high range. He was throwing it out there.
Just throwing it out there because that's what you do. You throw it on a wall.
Exactly,
and somebody will
see if
grab it.
something sticks. But I got the impression that he did not have the expectation that
No.
it
and
would,
I have-
someone's gonna just write him a check, that it's gonna be something in there, but
What it is, we don't know.
Right.
But there will be a check. I have no doubt in my mind that the fire department, police department will be taken care of. What I do have a doubt, and I do think should be, the remainder of those dollars spent should be for the senior services. That expansion to me, if they don't want to give the whole dollar amount, then say that. But that's what that money is supposed to be there for. It's not supposed to back up our savings account. It's not supposed to back up things that, you know, the board just automatically, without much thought, agreed to paying for the, and you're right, the and drive thing is another issue. They try very hard to make that argument. I'm still not totally sold on that private property being taken care of until it gets turned over, until they abandon it or whatever they need to do, whatever Mr. Kessler has to do with it. I'm just not convinced that that's a good use of what our fund should be. But I do agree with the strategic plan. I do think it should be there. I think there's some wonderful ideas that have to, you know, be addressed and talked about, but we don't talk. Maybe, I have no idea. I have no idea who talks to who. They don't talk to me. So
Well, they don't talk together.
No.
They don't talk to us.
No, they don't. I don't think that they have good communication skills when it comes to what they should be doing, because the
Decision-making or otherwise.
well, the best thing is you keep these things quiet, close to the vest, and you don't talk to people. But I do think that this community is gonna shout out loud and clear what it wants and what it doesn't want come November of next year, actually August. They'll start. I have a firm belief that that's what they'll do. They may be silent on it, and you may think that this is gonna get away, but I don't know if you can wait that long. And one of the things, and it was for public comment, and I'll wait for that, because it was in the minutes, and I didn't say anything, but it was mentioned that Becca was gonna be here. You were gonna ask.
That what?
Becca, your recreational director,
Was supposed to be at this meeting.
was supposed to be at this meeting.
Becca?
Yeah, that's.
Where did you read that?
Right here. Events and community engagement, yeah, in your minutes.
We had talked about, I had asked
About the
the,
fourth sentence down.
yeah, I had asked the Senior Services Advisory Board if they would like us to reach out to Becca.
Right.
And we were encouraged to take this on ourselves
Was that done?
and not to invite her. I didn't see that in here.
Yeah.
Well, we raised concerns about the logistics of such an
Did you
invitation.
see it in here?
Well, he did, and it had a discussion on it, and someone was gonna ask her, I thought.
I don't think we ended up with,
We said we wouldn't.
yeah, I think we ended up more saying we wouldn't because we need to get this figured out, the dynamics of these relationships. And, we didn't know that it would be successful at this time.
What does the senior services board have in their account to put toward the expansion? What have they raised to put toward the expansion?
We have about $37,000 to $38,000.
Can Cheryl bring up at the next board meeting, and have them vote on the expansion?
Well, I spoke to her about this today. It has to be, we have to get it on the agenda, and I think that we can get the senior center expansion on the agenda as part of the ARPA discussion. But Sherry Killerman and Marie are gonna have to provide the leadership for that with the trustees.
Right.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. And the problem with that, she always sort of got.
I know, it's okay.
Judy face. And I do that to her all the time. When you talk about that, Jean, you act as if, and most people do, it's not you personally. Most people assume, the ASSU and me, that there is this coordination, that there's discussion that takes place, that there's
Reason?
individuals that do it. That's not what happens. That's not what happens.
But if these two support it, you support it, and Cheryl supports
She
it.
wasn't there.
No, but if she brings it up, if we get it on the agenda again,
And you think you're gonna back them into the wall to say that they do support it? 'Cause you
well,
won't
they did
back-
the last meeting, you said. Cheryl would have, you did,
That doesn't.
And
mean-
Ryan and Al would support it as well.
right, so
Right.
that's 4.
That's right. So it just has to be part of the discussion.
Now, the question will be, we had the discussion on who supported what for ARPA. There was no vote on, we're gonna spend the ARPA funds here. That's not what happened,
There was no vote. On how much? On the amount.
on anything.
Right, no.
There was nothing. So the assumption would be that all of them agree, 4 of them would agree, which would outvote the others, that the senior,
Do you want to ask Mary what?
Expansion.
the expansion should be paid for, $500,000 for that. That discussion most likely would be tallied to say, we don't know what we want to spend the rest of it on. So we can't vote on that. Been there, done that,
Well, if the funds are there,
absolutely.
couldn't they vote on a portion of the funds to go to the expansion? If we
Is there a
have-
timeline on when those funds have to be spent?
Oh, they have to be spent by next year, 26. Well, actually, not next year, by 2026.
So committed
But the
to and or
determination
spent?
needs to be made this year.
Okay.
They have to articulate their wishes to the federal government, the purpose to the federal government by the end of '23.
And I have to agree with Officer Latham, I think he's the one that came in, when he said the ARPA funds have specific purposes for being here. And for us, this community, that was a heck of a windfall. There are some people, Victor Township, other townships, that are taking their $300 and some odd thousand that they got, and they're spending them on broadband.
Community-wide.
Because they think that's a long-term issue. For me, that's like, that makes a wonderful strategic plan, and I think
So
we're
that's this week.
responsible for doing that. ARPA's a one-shot. It's a one-shot deal. For people who really needed funds for that time. And yes, the kids had problems with computers. I get all that. I get that point. We pulled our funds. We went ahead and, I think we added 300 and some odd thousand for broadband, but we pulled it back.
Yeah, because they weren't going to serve Bath Township.
Well, that happens a lot.
Right.
I mean.
I thought it was good that they withdrew their funding.
See, I didn't.
Their
And
support.
the reason I didn't was because Bath Township is very well off. They do okay. We're allowed to raise money. We'll ask for more. We'll keep doing that. We'll keep asking. We'll keep hiring. We'll keep spending. We keep doing that. Other townships don't have that luxury. So Bath Township, to support those who don't, I don't see a problem with that. It's like when you go out to help somebody. What do you get for it? You don't get anything except the satisfaction that you're helping somebody, for what that's worth. I think that same philosophy works in government. So when it comes to expenditures that we have, should we support other townships? I don't have a problem with that, frankly. But this me stuff just doesn't seem to, for me personally. Who knows what's gonna happen 20 years down the road? We already pay this township, what, 5 mils? We pay the county 5.6 mils or 5.7, whatever it is. I mean, when you start looking at what we're spending money on, look really closely at your tax bill as to what we're spending. The money is the crucial issue, as some know. So anyway, that was my comment.
Questions for Marie right now?
Well, I do think that we should ask Cheryl to, or whatever we have to do to get it on the agenda. And then I think, I wasn't able to because of health reasons, but I do think that then we need to bring it up to the senior center and flood this room at that board meeting. And get people to come and voice their opinions and see who's voting and who's saying what.
When is the next board meeting, Marie, do you know?
Yeah, what is it, November 6th?
We have quite a while because of Karen's out.
Oh, yeah, she's doing the budget season, she's gone until,
She's on vacation right now. Thank you. I think that's a good idea, Jean. I think we should try to
I
get
mean,
as many people
I'll
as
try
possible.
it's
and.
worth a shot.
We have to find out when the
I'll
meeting
try and
is.
get
Yeah.
some support for people to come,
Yeah, we'll find out
and-
exactly when the meeting is and we'll,
how we get it on the agenda.
Yep.
Right.
all right, so, under new business, I reached out to the library and asked them if, first of all, I went around and asked every table, the last time we had meatloaf and the room was over full, if people would be interested in a tech workshop, learning about smartphones, Androids, tablets, and especially streaming on TV. It's all things that I feel people would be interested in. There was a lot of interest expressed by every table that I visited with, and I visited all of them. So I went to the library and they're very excited. They would love to do tech workshops with us. And so I said I would bring it back to this group to see if there was support for us to move forward on that, and if there were, that I would get back in touch with them. And then the librarian reached out to me and said that they're having an author visit the library on Monday, the 11th of December, and the presentation isn't until the evening that the author's gonna do, but she'll be here in the morning. Would we like to have her come and speak at the senior center? So the author's name is Cheryl Woodruff, and she's just released a book called American Roulette, which is a series of short novelettes written by, I think, must be 8 or 9 other authors. And anyway, so I thought I'd bring it back here and see if people would support that, and if they would, then I would go and continue to work with the library to bring those two things to the senior center.
I think so. I support that.
Yeah, I do too.
All right. Now, Mary just walked into the township hall, and I asked Helen to ask her what the deadline was for the calendar and the events, the activities on the back of the calendar. And she said the third week of the month?
Yeah, this week, she should have had it in, but she tends to try to get it in the first or second week.
So it needs to be in by Friday, so anything that we want on the November calendar needs to be to Taylor by the 20th of October for November. So I'll have to, I think that Dana's trip is in November. Don't really remember, I have to ask her and see. I'm just looking to see.
November
Braun is
9th.
November 9th, being planned for November 9th. So we'll have to get that on the calendar. So I'll move forward with these two things with the library. The librarian said she didn't really think that planning tech workshops in November or December would be very helpful because lots of people don't go to workshops in November or December. I am going to argue with her a little bit about that. Our seniors are always here. So it's not like she's waiting for someone to come into the library. So I'll see what we can work out with her and I'll get back to you. Again, planning for Tuesdays and Thursdays. I guess I put that on there because I'm wondering if we should do something more formal. I know it's time to sign up for Medicaid and Medicare again for the updated plans. I think it would be really good to have somebody come in and talk to the seniors about that. I think it would be good to do income tax preparation at the senior center. Now would be the time to be planning that. I think that we should probably do some more health-related workshops. Like 3 years ago, we did a PATH workshop for diabetes education, nutrition. So there are a lot of things that I can think that we could be doing that I think the seniors would be interested in. And if you read the results of the community conversation, you can see that they are those are the kinds of things that people were interested in and concerned about and wanted to see. So I just don't know if we should take the leadership on that, or if we should make suggestions to the staff and let them do their work. What thoughts?
It seems to me that we should be doing suggestions. It doesn't seem to me that it's our responsibility to schedule activities. That's their responsibility. I think that we can bring them suggestions and
I agree.
maybe even bring it up at a lunch so that everybody hears what we're suggesting, you know?
I agree with you. I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but
Yeah, I agree.
I feel it's their job. That's
It
what we're
is.
paying for them. $105,000 next year.
I
What
mean,
are you
if
gonna produce?
Dana wants to organize these trips, that's all, that's good. But I think as far as activities at the senior center, I think we should be making suggestions. And if they're not listening, then we need to go from there, but let's see if they'll listen first.
Who do you make the suggestions to?
What was your comment?
To whom?
Marie?
To
To
whom do we
whom?
make suggestions? Do we make them to Jenna, or do we make them to Taylor, or to Karen?
Board.
Who do we,
You're an advisory committee.
I know, but,
It seems to me we would make them to Jenna and let Jenna carry it up.
right, I agree. I mean, but,
There are
we could
suggestion
use, we could
forms.
use the example of the craft show. Elaine went to Jenna in February and asked her about a craft show, having it at the senior center. And she went back to her and back to her and back to her and back to her, and finally she came to me. She said, I can't get an answer, so could Friends of Park Lake sponsor that for us? Sure, we'll be happy to. Next day. Hall reserved, everything ready, go. Joy brought us a letter and asked us if we could have a speaker at the senior center. Because she had asked Jenna. Jenna didn't give her an answer, so she came to us. We gave the letter to Karen. We still got no response. We scheduled that speaker, but yet even the day when the speaker came in, Jenna didn't go out to meet that speaker. She didn't introduce that speaker. It was left to us. So, I mean, we haven't been successful in making suggestions and having them followed up on. So, I mean, I'm willing to continue to make suggestions if that's the route that you think that we should go.
I think there's a suggestion box over there.
There is.
That actually comes here, the
It's
suggestions.
locked.
I think it comes here.
It does. It's locked. You can't open it there. It's locked.
I think it's a great idea, though, to use a suggestion box and just load it up,
but then
especially
we
with
need to-
similar ideas.
But then we need to have someone who will follow up and say, okay, 2 weeks ago, someone put a suggestion in the box about this. Has it been discussed? No, what about this suggestion that someone made?
Well,
What did
we've
you
heard-
guys decide on that?
We've heard you've had 3 or 4 dozen suggestions on a certain thing. How's that going?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we could,
It's gotta be someone who'll, I guess, make the contact with Karen, I guess, to say, we know these suggestions were put in the suggestion box. What have you done about it? Have you followed through on it or even discussed it?
yeah, what kind of turnaround can we expect on those types of things?
What is the lady that's, Jenna, what does she do? What is her job?
She's the program and activities coordinator for the senior center. Anything outside meals.
Okay, so what does she do? Really? I'm
She has a
sorry,
she has a job description.
but what does she do?
Well, I don't have her job description, but I know there is one.
Right, and.
And
I've
what does
known people
Taylor
that
do
have a
then?
description, but what do they do? So all these things we're talking about, we can't go to her with them, we're supposed to suggest them to, I'm a little perplexed. When I used to be on the senior center committee, the lady that was running the center, we would go to her and say, hey, what about this?
Well, she came to our meetings. She was part of our
Yeah,
team.
it would
We were
happen.
a team together.
So, my just general question, not being offensive, not being mean, not being anything, is, what does she do?
Marie, how do we get a copy of someone's job description?
You ask for it.
Ask who?
Ask Karen, and if that doesn't work, you FOIA, freedom of information,
Okay.
But,
one step at a time.
Ellen, you're fairly new to the current board.
yeah,
We have been perplexed with that ever since Jenna started,
okay,
and we can't get answers to it. We can't get answers to it.
okay.
Not only that, but when I was asking about the budget for next year, currently Jenna, well, before we went to 5 days, she was paid for 26 hours a week, 12 of which she spent at the community, at the senior center, the rest she worked at home, but we don't know what she did. She certainly didn't plan activities.
We've asked, and they won't give us answers. Karen, I don't know, she won't answer
I'm not
us.
trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be
No,
any of that.
No,
we aren't
I'm
either.
just
So we have
perplexed.
never
And they-
received Jenna's job description?
But if they've gone from 88 to 105,
They're
I'm
going
thinking
to.
there needs to be something pushed in there.
They're going
then.
to in January, right? That's next
Yeah.
January?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even still.
But they've gone from 3 days a week to 5 days a week, and the staff is covering those hours.
To do what?
Right.
Just be there in the building?
Just be there in the building.
Well, I wanna do daycare on a building.
Which is another
kind
question
of money.
I had, is the fact that several of us have volunteered to spend a day or a half a day there. Karen has something about volunteers. She wants
I
to
don't
pay
think so.
staff to be there.
I disagree, Dennis. I don't think, I would never volunteer. I would not want to be responsible for anything that were to happen there. I would not want to be
Well,
responsible.
staff will be there though.
No, they were talking
No,
about
we're
volunteers
talking about
instead of
volunteers
staff.
in
Oh,
place of
instead.
staff.
Oh,
No, I would not volunteer. I do not want that responsibility. That's a huge responsibility to be there and be knowledgeable and be able to handle every situation that were to come up.
But there are some of us who, I've done that job, I did that job for 8 weeks, and I wouldn't have no problem volunteering.
I agree. I would never volunteer, and if they have paid staff, then where's the paid staff?
yeah, facilitation is one thing.
Yeah,
Facilitating an activity, but in place of, I don't want to be in place of staff. I want to be
In addition.
in addition to assisting, complimenting.
Supporting.
Supporting, yeah, and that's, I think that's completely appropriate, but if they're being paid, they need to be there and they need to be involved. But, you know, I don't expect staff to be an expert in every different thing that comes up, which, you know, is why we bring in experts or, you know, people of interest and other things that can, you know.
So I think that what I'm hearing consensus on is that we should make suggestions
Yeah.
Correct.
and let the staff carry it out.
yeah.
We're not being paid to do that, they're being paid to do that we should make suggestions. And I think also that I hear people saying that we use the suggestion box. That's at the senior center. All right, good. Anything else on that topic right now, Dennis?
Nope.
Do you think we need a BOT Board of Trustees update? Do you have anything you want to add, Marie? This is usually where Sherry makes a report, but like I said, she's very sick today and didn't want to make us sick, so she's not here.
Well, you want the long version or the short version?
The short.
I get it, short version. A special meeting was called, I questioned and challenged the special meeting. From that, of course, you know, that went nowhere, which was not a big deal. We had the applicants, there were 5, Kate Hagerman, Ray Kotke, Jack Phillips, who wasn't there because he also supposedly had COVID. Michael Piper and Jeremy Tolliver. Nothing was said about Jack Phillips and Sherry not being there. So,
Those other four candidates made a presentation, a 5-minute presentation, prepared presentation to the Board of Trustees. Jack Phillips wasn't even there, and they're the one, he's the one they appointed.
yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. But again, nothing was said to postpone to do it, I think maybe because Carol was gonna be on vacation, or whatever it is that she's doing. So the new appointment, which was by the majority, was Jack Phillips. And since he wasn't there, there was no swearing in. They did not say anything about the committees that he would be appointed to. That wasn't on the agenda. I put it on the agenda, but that didn't mean that our clerk put it in the minutes. Understanding your minutes, just so everybody understands, when a clerk makes minutes, that's the history of what happens, and I know you know this. So whatever the minutes say, that's the history of what took place. So we also talked about Park Lake property. We now, at this point, I have two numbers. Bath Township owns anywhere between 54 and 72 pieces of property. They talked about retaining more property and purchasing it. They talked about not purchasing pieces of property. One of our business people want to expand, or whatever he wants to do, so he wants to sell or wants to buy property. And apparently we own the property, and there's a discussion on whether he should or not. We had the quarterly amendments for the budget, it was like 3 pages. And what that means when they make amendments, and they're supposedly mandated, I don't quite understand that totally, but supposedly they're mandated that they have to do these adjustments. And there were 3 pages that needed to be adjusted for the '23 budget. So that was discussed and that was passed. We talked about Baker Tilly, who is one of our vendors that has to do with the sewer rates. So we had discussion on them and passed in order for Baker Tilly to be able to be involved. They have a really long kind of proposal that they made. It was probably about 5 or 6 pages of what they will and what they won't do. So that was discussed. And then, of course, the superintendent has her report. And then we have board statements, and then you have, well, actually, public statements, too, for anything that's on the agenda. And then we have board meetings. So that's the short version.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Public comment? Do you have any more public comment, Marie?
Oh, no, well, I shouldn't say this.
Yeah, I know you made a note.
I did, I made a note. When you talked about meals taken away, does that mean that when they came in and there wasn't a chair, that they then went to Mary, which by the way, you do have awesome food.
They went to the kitchen and took
Goes to the kitchen and they prepare
A
a
takeout.
package to take it out.
a takeout meal.
Okay, so they not only prepare the numbers that people call in, they had to prepare takeout meals for people who didn't have chairs. So they had last minute takeouts, okay.
Yep.
I wanted to make sure I understood that, because that's what I had in my notes. And of course, my other note had to do with backup, and you already answered that one, and the correction that you had in it, so I think that's it. You guys always have such a wonderful meeting.
So do any of you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I didn't realize we were talking about the time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when we were talking about suggestion boxes and that type of thing, but that's where we were, right? That was more in that category. I did want to say, so far, I emailed the principal of the high school, and she has not responded. I did follow-up call her this morning and have not heard back yet. Just asking, do you think there's any way we could have, have your students perform, whether it's singing, whether it's musical instruments, whether it's a scene from a play, you know, for our seniors, you know, that we would love to do something like that. And, you know, I'd love to talk to you if there's someone else that I should be asking this of, who, you know, can you refer me to them? Which is what I put in my email. So I should have called before this morning, but I've had a lot going on, so I'm sorry about that,
I
but.
think it's true that that would be a lot of fun. People would enjoy that, you know, and keep pursuing it. I think
Yeah, will do.
it's
I
a
think
great
find out who the
opportunity.
teacher is, who the music teacher is, who the band teacher is, and just say, can you arrange for an outing to the senior
Well,
center?
and I wondered if they had like a sponsor teacher for National Honor Society, but then I heard a comment made, because National Honor Society, when I was in school, you had to have your community hours as part of National Honor Society. But then I heard there's something about community hours for any high school graduate. But that's a newer thing, well, newer, to, you know, over 40 years ago. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's a lot more opportunity here than even we had realized.
There is.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could provide those community hours? So that's the angle I'm trying to use.
I think
but
that's great.
I'm just a little disappointed I haven't, because it was over 2 weeks ago I emailed her. No response. So anyway,
Dennis, in that notebook on Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, is there a contact for the National Honor Society?
I think there is.
Could you look that up and maybe share it with Doug?
Yep.
that would be awesome.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you for your time and your patience and your input and your willingness to get this done. Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.
Judy, I will just say,
I'm gonna turn this
off the record, I will just say that I did